Yo, 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 welcome back to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyle, passions, and hustles. My name's Chris Furlong. I am your host, and I'm super excited to be back here having the conversation with you. And we're back here with another guest. I'm super excited to introduce you to Jaiden Peters. Now, Jaiden, I've known him for a while, all things video, videography, photography, all that jazz, an exciting space, and he's doing some exciting things. I met Jaiden probably about 5 years ago. He did some work for me as part of my prior brand to Further Your Lifestyle, and he does an amazing job in actually making his talents shine in the work that he does. Now, recently, he's just gone out on his own and he's just launched his brand new business called ShareWorthy. And in this episode, we do touch on that and what it's all about, but really what we dive into is how not everything is as linear as we expect it to be. And the journey that we want to go on isn't always as we expected, but there's plenty of opportunities along the way that we can leverage and learn from and ride with to get us to where we want to be. We also dive into the challenges of expectation versus reality and also creating your own business or passion or lifestyle while managing the different challenges that life brings with it, but also making sure that you enjoy the joys and the rewards that come with that too. We also touch on him being a one-man band and actually doing all this himself and the journey in actually building this out and actually making it happen. I really enjoyed this episode and I really loved having the conversation with Jaiden because he has got an amazing background of experience and he's got an amazing talent to actually do all things creative. And it's just great to have the conversation around how sometimes reality isn't as we expect it to be, but it does get us in the right direction with a few little pointers and a few little things along the way that we have to be willing to learn and are willing to adjust and pivot to. So buckle up, get comfy, get cozy, and let's dive into it. Welcome, Jaiden, to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast. How you doing this morning, mate?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Oh, love it, love it. Now you're up in Queensland, Brisbane, Gold Coast area. So what, you're an hour behind me. It must be about 9 a.m. Is that correct?
No, so it's 10 a.m.
Oh, because of the time. Oh, yeah, because daylight savings has changed. Well, there you go. Here in my own country, it's like even just as confusing. But mate, it's been great to get to know you over the last, it must be about 5 years. I think we've been following each other on Instagram, and I know you originally helped me out with some photo shoots for the previous brand of Further Your Lifestyle, which was Furry. And I don't even know actually how we kind of met. I think it was either through connections or stumbled upon each other. And I always joke about how Instagram is kind of like, we kind of like suss out people, or we stalk people like, oh, what's this person doing? And then slide in and say, hey, you want to help me out? And from there, it's been great to be able to watch your journey as a videographer and photographer and see some of the real cool creative things that you've come up with. And I guess that's what we're going to dive into today and really, go into a deeper dive of understanding who you are, what you're all about, but also the journey of being able to create what you are now doing. And we'll touch on that shortly. So let's hear from you. Who are you and what are you all about?
Whoa, how much time you got? Where to start? I guess. So basically, for people who don't know, my name is Jaiden. I run a company called ShareWorthy, which is based around creating ShareWorthy content for brands, businesses, and individuals. So that's basically in a nutshell what we do. We do a lot of work within the property sector, and we also do a lot of work with a bunch of fitness brands and e-commerce and things like that. So that in a nutshell is basically ShareWorthy. Yeah.
Love it. And you are the face of that, of course. And I love how you said that you're doing property, and you're doing, workout, gym area as well. And they're completely different industries. But I love how everyone has their niches and everyone has their styles. And I guess if we take a step back, how did this passion for video photography even come to life? Because I know it's been a journey over the last 5 years and it's evolved, but I guess, did you study it in high school? I mean, in TAFE or university, or how did that kind of come to fruition?
Yeah, it definitely started way back then. So, back when I was in school, it started off with, the guy with the camera is what I was known as, and, at sports events and things like that through school, cross country and that, I was never the greatest long distance runner, but I was like, hey, I'll take a photo of someone. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So that's where that came from. And then from there, basically went to a TAFE course during school, which was basically just an excuse to get out of one day of school because you get to go to TAFE for a day.
Love it.
But that was the original excuse, but then ironically, I just fell in love with it even more from there. And that was basically the moment, and I was like, this is what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, from there, basically all my friends were about to, it was final year of school. They're like, all right, we're going to go to uni. I was like, all right, cool. Let's go to uni. And then I was like sitting there, I'm like, oh, they don't really have many, film photography kind of like courses and that, and, or as some people would call them, degrees in unemployment. you know, but yeah, so basically I found a marketing course, went and did that at like a generic uni, hated it. And pretty much dropped out within the first semester. Even though I did well in it, it just wasn't for me. It didn't really blow my skirt up, sort of thing. So then I found a uni that literally was a private sector uni that specializes in, film, graphic design, animation, game design, like very niched into creative industries. And that was pretty cool. So basically went there and finished my degree. And then now I've got a bachelor of film and media, I guess. So if people ask me if it was worth it, I don't know. I feel, if I'm being completely honest, if you want to work on a Netflix feature film, something like that, it's absolutely great. But I feel like the course curriculum doesn't necessarily cater for, people who are in this sort of modern videographer space of, that sort of business and freelancing, as opposed to films.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those. No, I can understand that, because I guess going to film school is kind of like going through the whole, end-to-end production set. Where do you start from? I guess, I mean, I know nothing about all this, but I guess it's coming from all the way from the creative scripts to, and then actually getting your actors, then to going through the production, and then post-production, and then, actually getting it out, for people to come watch it, which is a whole different ballpark when it comes to like freelance and what you're kind of doing, because you could kind of walk around the street and say, hey, you want me to do a video of you, and you're making business right then and there. But I guess I can reflect on that. I did a bachelor of IT, and I was never very technical, and I realized that going through that process that I liked more analytical or project management. But in terms of once getting out of that, I realized that I'll probably, your first like 2 weeks of induction going into like a, one of the big 4 companies in technology, that induction is kind of like 2 weeks worth of, your last 3 years worth of uni. It's all the foundations. And then and then the rest is all just, you got to get in and get your hands dirty, which I understand why a lot of places, regardless if it's technology or film, they do want that experience, because that helps you then understand things and move quicker with the business. Obviously, then there's the flaw of, they want you to have 5 years experience, but they want you to be as cheap as a graduate, which you've got no experience. It's like,
it's a catch-22. Hey,
exactly. So I guess from your side, then, the beauty is that the best way to get into this is actually just getting your hands dirty, which you kind of said you were known as the guy always with the camera. So, you've done the study, you've got that behind you, which probably gives you some credential. But from that, I guess, did you go into just literally, was it sliding into DMs and saying, hey, look, I'm starting some photography, I'm doing some videography, it'd be cool to do some shoots, kind of like what, you had done for me? Or did you kind of have a bit of a plan? And I know now you have a plan, but I guess building up to that point before discovering yourself and launching, I guess, ShareWorthy, is that how you kind of went by it, or what was the process there?
No. So I guess, the plan of attack was like, I thought I was going to be, the next Gary Vee. We're going to have this big media company. I'm going to graduate and like, and then obviously, as I'm sure we'll probably get into, reality quickly, puts a halt in that plan. And so basically it was more, for me, it was more about getting some, financial security and some regular income and things like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to embed myself in an industry that needs this content. And that's basically where I got a full-time job doing as a marketing coordinator for a home builder. And basically that was great. They basically like, you take this as an opportunity and you just run with it and take it for what it is. And, I was able to gain a lot of valuable skills and networking through that, which basically, has definitely contributed to where I am today, I guess.
And do you think, obviously me knowing a bit more context and things like that, I guess, if we dive into that next level of that journey, because it probably has been a journey of probably has been about 5 years of you kind of getting to this point of actually knowing this is what you want with ShareWorthy. But I guess, you've gone through the process of starting multiple businesses or side hustles or however you want to call them. Even in the back, you've got Stay Golden, which I know was one of your ways you were representing your brand at a point in time. And, you still have that and whatnot. But, there was all these different things, ambitions, goals, I guess, trial and errors and pivots, which is really good because you were willing, not knowing that you were willing to fail then, but, you went through it. You have, I'm not saying it's a failure, but they didn't go in the way that you expected. So you've had to pivot and adjust. And I guess, now then you realize, okay, maybe it's best to get that stable income, that security, but with the passion and elements that you love embedded in that, right? And I guess going through that, I want to kind of touch on, I guess, some of the lessons in hindsight of that, of like, how these failures, they've kind of like, or fails or things that didn't go as planned have enabled you to now, I guess, make things a little easier now, right? And because, in the time, of you maybe, whether it's a podcast, I know you've done a podcast, all these things, they didn't go as planned. There's that point in time where you feel like, do I feel like a failure? What have I done? What am I doing in my life? Whereas now you look back at it and you can see, it's like, I'm so glad that happened because then I did, you know what I mean? Like it's those two levels of it and two perspectives. But how has that played out for you, and actually going through those processes? I mean, even if you want to touch on how many things you think have flopped versus you've had to pivot to then actually get to where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right. And I think, for me, I was never afraid to fail. It was more,
that's good.
I was afraid that I would fail and then I'd never have, the balls, I guess, to get back up and try again and again and again. And I feel, you're right. I've had multiple businesses where I've tried to start, content creation businesses and, podcasts and, clothing companies and all these sorts of things. And they never really took off in the way that I imagined. But at the same time, you're right. I got lessons and I taught myself a bunch of things about those. And, even with this full-time job, I necessarily was like, no, I want to run my own business. I want to, I have bigger aspirations than this. But from that, I was able to learn so much from that, and not to gas bag or anything, but, we were able to grow that to one of the biggest builders in Queensland. And from that came just an immense amount of networking and understanding of different business things and having a mentor. And just, I learned so much that necessarily I wouldn't have if I never had that experience. And I think those things that aren't necessarily business related, but teach you about yourself, personal things like, how to manage stress, how to manage people, how to network, communicate, add value to people. Those sorts of things is what I learned throughout this time period. And I found that it wasn't until I got to a certain place where I felt confident in my skills, in my ability, and what I can, I guess, bring to the table, that I was truly able to be like, okay, I'm ready to take that plunge.
Yeah. And like, it's actually really interesting because, and this was probably going to be a later conversation I was going to bring up, but I'll probably bring it up early because it just makes so much more sense. And you already alluded to it. You said, originally you wanted to be like Gary V and go in and have the big media company, bang. And it's really interesting because, I think anyone that I've had on this podcast, or most people that I speak to, whether they're doing a side hustle, they've changed their lifestyle, or they're, pursuing passion, everyone knows Gary V, and he's been some sense of inspiration because he talks about what you're capable of doing and how you can get it. But he has changed that quite well in the last probably 2 years of making sure people understand it's about patience and doing it slow. But, we have all these aspirations to be like him, be like the great. So, but even looking on social media, we see the highlight reels and how everyone's making it and doing it. And even me coming to you back in the day, to get, your help with photo shoots, it's because I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing. So, you make it look so easy because I can't do it. So it's like, that's why people come to you, right? But then, of course, you're always being, I guess, influenced or inspired or challenged by other people such as Gary V. But when you bring it back into, I guess it's this reality versus expectation conversation, because, you mentioned that you had to go through this journey of having to dive into, going into work for someone else and actually having to learn these things about yourself, whether it's, how to deal with stress or, maybe, things don't come as quick as we dream. And it's that reality check of keeping us honest. And it's not as simple as it all looks, because if that's taken you a few years to kind of get your head around or get into the zone or be self-aware of, that's actually now setting you up. It's totally worth it, because it's now setting you up for this success to now go build the next 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20 years worth of whatever it is you're going to do. And once again, that comes with that point of hindsight. And you said it yourself, it's like, now you can understand how valuable that is. But I have to ask you, and you can put truth here, do you get so frustrated? Because I do as well, when you're putting all this blood, sweat, and tears, and it takes time to snowball to it. And then you see someone else come along and it happens in half the time, or it happens, and it looks like no sweat or something. And, not to say that it's a highlight reel, and they do, they just tend to just get ahead quicker. How do you deal with that? Because that that's annoying, right?
It is. What
especially in your industry.
It is, yeah. I don't know. I guess that it is so hard to explain, but I guess that at the end of the day, people are coming to, ShareWorthy, and they're coming to Jaiden because of, I guess, me and what I represent and the brand represents. We have a specific style, we have a specific, way we edit and things like that. And people look at it and they're like, okay, that's that style. And I guess, it gets incredibly frustrating. But at the same time, I think it's also important to not compare yourself to others. There's so many, you don't know their background, you don't know their story, you don't know, how hard they've been working. They could have been, 10 years on the grind and you would have had no idea. But recently they're like, hey, we better get some social media posts.
And they've gone
and now
in.
they're,
yeah.
And so you really just don't know people's case. But I think it's just important to, look around for inspiration, use it as inspiration, motivation, whatever you want. But at the same time, always stay in your own lane and just try and do what, you're wanting to do.
It's a good point, because, as I said before, I have a lot of context. I know what you've done. I know how you've pivoted, because I've been, whether it's following, lurking, or actually, used your services. And so I've seen how you've had to change, adapt, and pivot and all that jazz. Whereas people listening to this for the first time, they have no idea who you are. Well, I'm hoping that you're getting exposed to in your audience. They might know who you are, but they might not know that you have all this background. And I think that's the beauty of it, and why I love having these conversations, is because I'm bringing you on at the point of time where you've launched ShareWorthy, and we're going to get into that shortly. But no one necessarily knows all that detail behind it. But you've had to go through the thick and thin to get there, and that now enables you to execute with I guess, not saying perfection, but enables you to execute at that higher level and bring that higher quality, or to bring, the best to your clients, because you've now got it under your belt. So I can understand how, people looking, from outside can think, oh, how did Jaiden do this so quickly? Like, he's just made it look boom and he's blowing up, or, he's getting all these clients. Yet you've been, you've been grinding away for the last 5 years and had to go through the blood, sweat, and tears to make it happen. And it's the same with the power of networking, which you mentioned before. A lot of your clients or people that you're working with, people that you've kind of had that connection with, whether it was just from photos or whether it was just from friendships years ago. And now, they're further in their life and they're bringing you along for the ride. That in itself is beautiful, because it actually reflects back to that whole message of what Gary Vee talks about. And not to make this a Gary Vee episode or anything, but he talks about, you do need to hustle, not in the bad way, but willing to, keep at the grind, grow slow, have that patience, because it does pay off. And I mean, you would agree with that, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And even when you look at the perspective of that, you're right, not to keep talking about Gary Vee, but look in mind, he's like, what, 40, 50 years old? Like, he only became, when he was like, 40 or whatever it was. Like, he's had all that time. Like, I'm only 24. Like, we're looking at something in so far perspective, that he's had double 100%. The amount of time on this earth than me to accomplish what he has. So I'm like, I'm getting there. Like,
and that's the reality of it, is because we all want things now. It's that whole expectation versus reality. And, this is something that I've struggled with, and I've spoken about it multiple times on the podcast, of like, we are grinding away. We're always looking ahead of that next thing that we want or where we want to be, but we haven't actually kind of slowed down and looked left and right or zoomed out and seen what we've come from. And I think that's super important because, you've had all these, once again, I don't like calling them failures, but they've had all these things where you've had to step over and work through to enable you to now move quicker. But, the same thing, you have no idea what will happen with your business over the next 1 to 2 years. You have no idea if you're going to have to pivot. You've got dreams and aspirations of how big and bold you want to be with it, but, that might have to change and adjust once again. So it's interesting with that hindsight. And that's why I love having these conversations is because, and, you're only young as well. So many people, don't realize how quickly they can make a difference. And it doesn't have to be about whether you're 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 even, like, because, you can change things big time within 1 to 4 years, 1 to 5 years even, right? And,
Definitely.
that in itself, if you started at a corporate job, 1 to 5 years, that's, you're getting to middle management, you're actually starting to earn, pretty good money, $150,000. But when you're doing it as your own, like, I'm doing it as a solopreneur or doing your own business, that ceiling is so much bigger after 5 years because the opportunity is kind of like compounds or it snowballs or it expands. And I know that's what you're excited to see what you can develop. But
that's it. Like, I feel no one sees the late nights, like you said, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the failures, when you're editing someone's photo and you give it back to them, and I was looking back at them recently, and their skin tones are like blue, or they're like bright red, and they look like like what is going on? Like, look like a Smurf, and you're sitting there and you're like, you had to go through all of these failures and all these learnings and these teachers to get where we are today. And now it's getting to the point of where, like, not every potential client or whatever says yes now because we are too expensive. But I'm like, you're right, and that is okay, but that is because we've learned all these things to actually have quality work that we want, and we want to create the best possible for you, and that is going to come with a price and all of this learning from over the years.
100%. And I guess that comes with actually the next point I wanted to dive in which is the challenge of actually doing it yourself and making it your own and making your own name and being a one-man band or building a brand from bottom up. And there's lots we can dive into here, but you can't even talk about how you're pricing it. But I guess to take it a step back, doing something yourself, not necessarily even ShareWorthy at this point, because you've had to go through that, I guess, transformation across the different areas of, doing it yourself in so many different capacities. But, what does this look like? And like, what are the struggles or what are the wins? Because there's always going to be the highs and lows of it all. And obviously you enjoy it because you like being that solopreneur and actually, being your own little hustle. So how is that going to play out? Because, and maybe you can touch on how you just mentioned around, you're pricing things now a certain way because of what how you want it and the experience that you bring. And that in itself brings a big challenge because, bringing new people in and things like that.
So it started off when I was literally doing things for free. So I was like, I would just grab some friends that I knew that were kind of like into modeling or whatever, and I'd be like, hey, let's go, put on a t-shirt or whatever, and let's go shoot some cool photos or video. And then from there, it's sort of like, okay, I'm going to charge you $50 for this now, or oh, guess what? Surprise, it's $100 now, and it just sort of graduated from there and just slowly increased over time. And then I feel it just got to a point afterwards of like, okay, I just had to draw the line and be like, no more free, like it's paid stuff. I've got a mortgage and stuff now to pay for, and groceries to put on the table. This is like my actual life now. So and surprisingly, because of I think the value and everything that I was able to bring to people then, and just like I like to think that my brand is like personally, I'm quite a bubbly person. I like to have a conversation. I like to network and get to know people and everything like that, which has tremendously helped me throughout this. That now when it came time to starting ShareWorthy, I was able to, all those relationships that I developed from those previous years of failures and, free shoots and working at a full-time job, I can just recall on those and be like, hey, like, this is where I'm at in life. This is my plan of attack. We got along really well. Let's help each other out and make it a win-win situation for both. And from that,
Yeah, okay. I mean, and like with that point, I just want to dig a little deeper because I think, especially in your industry, photography and videography, it's a bit of a it's pretty bad in terms of excuse me, it's pretty bad in terms of that whole perspective of doing free shoots for people but as you said, you had to start then saying, no, this is $50 now and $100. And that's great. That's really, really good. But what I want to dive into that actual point in time where you had to actually start asking people for money, because you said a lot of them were your friends. That
Yes.
must be really hard. And the reason why I want to ask this is for, in case there's people listening that are in similar situations, whether it's photography or completely different industries, but they're at that point where they're starting to say, hey, they need to start making some money. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it. How does
Yeah.
that even go about? Like, because all of a sudden these people are thinking, especially models, they're getting free stuff. And I know some of them probably resonate with it because they're in a similar situation because they're modeling for free. But,
Yeah.
To all of a sudden start saying, hey, it's $50 and, you would have had people turn away and things like that. How does that go about? Because I know that can't be easy.
Yeah, with friends, it's definitely more challenging, but I always like to frame it in the perspective of like your friends would want to support, one of their other friends in their own business and things like that. And it just got to a point of, okay, the first people that I was charging money for weren't necessarily friends. I've never worked with them before, but I was like, hey, if I can do it for them, like, there's other people out there that are going to be willing to pay $50 for this or whatever it may be. So I guess it just started from outreaching to people on, Instagram would be a big
Yeah.
one, saying, hey, $50 for a shoot, you'll get all these incredible photos and you can do whatever you want with them. All I ask is like, we just have a tag, things like that.
Yeah.
And then from there, like, then that goes on their network and now you've opened up to that audience. And it's just sort of this spreading of you getting drip feeded throughout socials, which then has allowed you to create this brand of, if you have 100 people get $50 photo shoots, and then
That's
you
true.
get 50 people get $100 photo shoots, and it builds up and it escalates quite quickly.
Yeah, it can snowball very, and I guess it comes back to, when it is a tough conversation, it's probably because there's a value misconnect or like misunderstanding. Like, because, me now growing my own podcast and doing my own business, you start to realize, how much your time's worth. Oh, I'll be happy to pay someone $50 to do this because I don't have time to do it, or I'm not getting it done. So I need someone to do it for me. Whereas maybe at the start, they're kind of like, oh, not too sure. Let's splash. Oh, $50 seems like a lot. But, when you're at that starting point, $20 is a lot because you're trying to build your own business or profile or whatever. So it's like every dollar counts. But then once again, it comes back to that hindsight kind of thing, because then you start to realize the power of that, especially for you now, by you on the flip side of the people that you did do the shoots with and you did charge $50. Some of these people are now being able to play that same mentality across, and they've gone on to do bigger and greater things, right? Which means now they can understand that respect because it works both ways. But okay, it is a tough conversation, but I love how you said, even if it is $50 and you're sliding into 100 DMs and you're getting 50 of them, that starts to add up quite quick. But then it's that transference again of then saying, okay, well, I'm worth more than $50, right? Because back then $50 for you would have been like, yeah, you're balling because you've never earned money before, right? But now it's kind of like, you're sliding and it's like, oh, well, it's not sliding in now. It's a bit more obviously formal with contracts and things like that. And it's probably $5,000 and things like that. But that in itself, to go from 50 to 5, and finding that value point, the next question I want to kind of ask is like, how do you then articulate or that change of value? Because for you to then, and I know it didn't happen overnight, but to change from like, okay, now my service is gone from $50 to like doing the same thing, you might get 100 shoots. Obviously the quality and experience is better, but to then saying, a package like this is going to be $2,000, $4,000 kind of thing. Like that's a big jump, right? So how does that conversation kind of happen, or how do you go about actually helping people understand that value you bring? And I know this isn't just you, this is majority of, the current, I guess, landscape of photography and videography, because it is that package work, but it's the same for digital marketing, websites and things. Yeah. How does that kind of come to life, I guess?
So there's a few things I do, just going back a little bit, that I used to work for free, And then it would sort of build up to, okay, just cover my fuel costs. And it's like, okay, now it's your shot for lunch or a
Yeah.
coffee or whatever. And it just sort of slowly built up. And I feel like, people understand that value over time. If you're spending, 3 hours to drive down to the coast, shoot for an hour and then come back, like, I don't know what it is. Like people, if you're not going to be, a dick about it, and you're still going to be like, okay, well, that's 3 hours of their life.
Yeah.
And I feel like that transition, when you know to start charging or start charging more, occurs in the minute that you've almost got too much work on for your time. We've all got the same amount of time in the day, 24 hours. And I feel like if you've got, let's say, 10 shoots at $50 on a one day, I feel like that is a point where you should recognize that and be like, okay, this is too much time. Let's get 5 shoots for 5 hours at $100, and you've just made the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you just slowly keep that going, and it's the same with, you can apply this to anything like PTs and anything like that. If you've got, a bunch of clients that you're charging $70 an hour for or whatever, and you've got the whole day booked, well, up it to 80. And then, you're still making the same amount of money. You might get a couple of less clients, but it doesn't matter. You've got the same amount of money. So, and basically I just sort of multiplied that and kept it going. Then it started on weekends. So I was like, okay, I'm willing to give up my Saturday, but it's going to come with a price. So let's, $200 a person now. And at least then I can justify like, okay, I've missed out on my Saturday, but I've actually made a little bit of income and, got a portfolio now and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel it just happened once again that when it went full time, that I had this portfolio built up, I had this quality of work, and explaining to people and allowing brands to understand the value that it brings. Like you're sitting there saying, it's like, okay, you spend, let's say $200,000 on a billboard campaign that may or may not work, may or may not resonate with your audience or be seen by your audience. How about we spend half of that and we guarantee you to be seen by people, your socials are going to grow, like all these benefits for half the cost. Like
it's a no-brainer.
You almost make them feel stupid for not saying yes. And it's, you don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but that's how I like to do it. And then we go one step further again at ShareWorthy, and we even eliminate the risk by not putting them on like any long-term contracts or anything like that. So then it's like, okay, if this isn't working for you, you're only going to be locked in for this amount of period. But if you're not happy within that period, that's fine.
Yep.
But have we had anyone do that yet? No. So
that's good. That's good. but
it's a bit like a subscription plan on a website, right? They've always got a 7-day free trial or cancellation. Free cancellation. We apply the same thing.
Yeah, and that's good. And I think, obviously over the last 5 years, this whole process has evolved because everyone's had to it's a very competitive landscape, but people have had to get creative and do it in fresh ways. But I really, really love your point around, that minute you realize that you're too busy, right? And you're doing stuff for free or really low dollars, something has to change, right? And that's cool because if you are busy, it means you're in demand, which means people want you, which means you then can start, you're in control. You start to then call some of the shots. And that's really good. And I think, zooming out, it's a really good thing to help people understand is because it's a tough conversation to have. And right, especially being a solopreneur or, one-man band, and that obviously is a struggle that you've had to overcome. And then once you get through that, I guess that it starts to get quite lucrative. And it means, you've got this self-worth or value of yourself is going to go up, which gives you a whole new level of confidence. And then you can start dictating and choosing, I want this. No, I don't want to do this. Not in a rude and, dodgy way, but you can kind of start to, I guess, call the shots, right? And I guess
definitely
from that, I guess, evolving from that, I guess you've probably then obviously realized that's why you probably like doing it solo or being a freelancer, because you get to build your own path or choose your own adventure and make that discovery yourself. Is that kind of why you have gone down this route? Or I guess the question should be is like, why is it that you do it this way? Like, why haven't you kind of like, and I know maybe in the long term you want to, but you've always tend to always go back to wanting to do it yourself and build it your own way, even though you have to go through, I guess, a bit of a harder challenge. Is there a reason why?
Yes and no. It sounds a little bit pretentious, but a lot of the other agencies and things I've worked with in that, they never have the complete the complete package from my opinion,
Yeah. Okay.
I like to think that, when I want to offer a great product, a great content, but at the
Yep.
same time, I really want quality service, which is
Yep.
what a lot of them lack. I want to, treat my clients like kings. I want to take you out for dinner, go out for lunch,
Yep.
add that extra element of customer service that is going to also keep you there that a lot of other agencies don't necessarily,
Yep.
do or have time for, which is understandable. They've got
Yep.
50 staff on, it's just me. It's easier for me to be like, hey, let's go for lunch or
Yeah.
anything like that, which I guess is an added advantage of why I did this. So I think for me, I've always been about like, if I go to, shops, whether it's like Myers or something like that, and, Myers is okay, but if I have some incredible service from Myers, I'm going to rave about Myers all the time. And I think it's very much the same. Like I just always put service first. If I can be flexible, if I can be any of that sort of stuff and just be easier for them, then chances are they're going to come back because of that. And then the product is just an addition.
Yeah. Okay. So the way I see it then, and the way you're speaking with a lot of conviction, is it comes down to passion. Like you're passionate about, yeah. And that's good, right? Because you know what you want to deliver and what separates you from, every other Tom, Dick, and Harry. Right. But those people will be different to you as well, and they'll bring a certain service. And some people might not want that luxury service or that additional service, right? And exactly. I think, you did mention that before. You now know what you're trying to deliver. And you said there's a price point to that. So if people don't want to pay that, then that's fine, because maybe they don't want that additional thing, right? And sticking to your guns, that's really good. But once again, I know that that's only come from you doing this big grind of 5 years, going through the process, working for someone else, helping them build their businesses, and then, having these attempts of trying to build something not working, and it might have been dollar points, or maybe the dollar, it wasn't lucrative enough. And that was probably because you weren't charging enough. And, you weren't giving yourself enough justice. I love it. I'm just kind of like playing it all full circle. And I love how that's now come to, like, I'm not saying that you're at your peak, but, you're at a point where the peak can now start to grow, because you're at a point where you want to be, right? And, I mean, it's, sorry, I'm taking it all in. I love it.
No, that's good.
so from that then, because I want to get in and actually dive into, what ShareWorthy is all about, and dreams and aspirations for that. But I guess getting to that point, and in all that you've been doing over the last 5 years, I guess if there's some key lessons over the years in chasing these dreams, that you can kind of refer to, or what were key lessons that now you're making sure you have in your life to help you further your life, what would some of those be? Because, I mean, we're always growing, but obviously you would have some that probably have stood out, and now ones that you're trying to be better at.
Definitely. I think the first one would just be taking a minute to be self-aware enough of actually being able to recognize those things, the things that you're good at, the things that you're bad at. Sometimes, we get caught up in, we start banging our head on the door because our head gets so big, and, we're the man, and we're this and that. And, I think sometimes we just got to take a step back and be like, okay, you're right. We've got to look at how far we've come, which is great. This is where we want to go, and it's going to be amazing. But what are things I need to work on personally and as a business to further this and make it to the next step, And I feel one of the other things is I just got to learn to back myself 100%. I feel one of the biggest things when I first started out is I didn't truly back myself and believe in myself 100% to be able to actually take that plunge, quit my full-time, well-paid job, and start my own business. So until I actually did that, and I just had that courage to just try, and I thought, heck, if I fail, it doesn't matter. I'm young enough to start again. I'm sure I'll be able to grab another job somewhere. And just having that mentality of like 100%, this is going to work. Like I have to pay my bills, and almost like you're getting backed into a corner by your own mentality. It's super weird, but it helps.
That I love that. And I just want to dive a little deeper, because I mean, I can resonate with that, because for me to build this podcast, it meant I had to step away from the 9 to 5 and the comforts of that. And because me trying to build, before this was Furry, right, which was, now this is a pivot of that, I had 1 foot in, I wasn't all in. I was still doing the 9 to 5, trying to, it's good. You love the security, you love the money, and the job was great. The people were great and all that, so much potential, but you realize that there's something more that you want, and you can't be giving only 5% of your time or 10% of your time. If you're passionate about something, you got to start to have that perspective of like, well, imagine what would happen if I'm putting in my 100%, and have 2 feet in. And I know, because you were also, I knew you had 1 foot in all these different things, and it meant that you had to realize that this isn't going to work, so you would cave back or compromise back to full time or whatever. And that's okay, because I think there's point of times in our life where we need the money. We need to be able to have that steady income. We also need to, as you said, grow that self-confidence and actually understand who I am, have that self-awareness, and understand what do I actually want in life. But then knowing to going 110%, and that mentality of knowing, well, what's the worst that can happen? Just get another job.
Exactly.
It's hard to kind of, at the start, like, I know you and I can relate to this, because going for that process, it's hard to conceive and understand. But now that we're on the other end of it, you can kind of look back and like, it just seems so simple. Like, it seems so straightforward. But I guess we can get back to the challenges or the lessons from that. But I love how you now have it with that conviction, because that's the only way to do it. And I'm not saying that you can't build something on the side as a side hustle, but there's going to come a point where that side hustle won't be a side hustle. And for it to go to that next level, you have to go all in, or you have to have a lot of money to pay someone else to do it for you. Right. But then it's still not your baby. Right. I love it. So, sorry to cut you off, but is there any other like kind of lessons or areas there which you think over the few years that have been, I guess, monumental in helping you get to where you are? Or are there now things that you're now trying to learn more of in terms of, helping you further your life or further you towards your dreams and ambitions?
Absolutely. But like, there's loads of things. Like, I feel like, there's so many things. Like,
Good answer.
And yeah, like, it almost feels like, a bit like imposter syndrome. It's like, oh, like, you're interviewing me and talking to me about like this business, and I'm like, I don't even think, like, I'm just out here doing me. Like,
that's good though. That's right. That's right.
Like, I'm just Jaiden from Brisbane.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly it's incredibly humbling to look back on things like this and be like, you're right. Like, when you look back at it and what we've been able to accomplish, okay, like, you have to be proud of yourself, but at the same time, never satisfied and always looking for the next thing.
That's it.
In terms of other things, I feel where to start? There's honestly so much. Like, one of the, I guess it's all good to be 100% go-getter. You're working the late nights, the long hours, and whatever it may be, but you also have to realize that will affect other aspects of your life. You could have the best career and you're conquering all your business goals, and hey, you're making more money, whatever it may be, good for you, but at what sacrifice? You've got less downtime. It affects your personal relationships. There's so many other, your mentality, like, how much time have you got for yourself to actually sit there and reflect upon and just have a think and a moment to yourself? All of these things just come into play, and you got to get that balance, and it's tough. And that's what I would say I'm struggling with the most.
Yeah. Okay. And it's good that you bring that up, because, I think one of the reasons why people start side businesses or hustles or pursue their passions is to build that lifestyle that they want. And I know this because I'm the same, but once you get into it, I was working 60-hour weeks, but for someone else. Now I'm probably still doing 60-hour weeks. The difference is I'm doing it all for myself. So now it's kind of like I have to make sure if I'm working, I'm also, my lifestyle is embedded in all of that, right? And that, that's why it doesn't seem as stressful and as in, I guess, tolling, because everything I'm doing, I get to dictate and love. But there is times where I'm like, I'm doing this on the weekend, or, I want to spend time with my girlfriend on the weekend. So it means if I'm going to do that, I have to cut this, or I have to be able to do this, or be ready in time, and giving myself deadlines and, milestones and things like that. Definitely. Because, this is that opportunity to build that life. It's not about, this whole podcast is about furthering your lifestyle, but that in itself needs to be all elements, not just, making lots of money or being necessarily, having it all together, but I think happiness is the key there. And that happiness
Yeah,
isn't money, right? It's about having those
exactly.
loved ones or having the time to do this or the freedom of time or the freedom to make those decisions. And, I love that you bring that up because, you know, and I love how you said, it's like, you're just Jaden from Brisbane. But, the reality is like when you go through the process of, achieving those small things or they're big things to you, but to others, they may look like small. We're on this timeline where we're always ahead of someone else and always behind someone else, right? So you said it yourself, it's good to celebrate those little things and be proudful of it, but you also have to be then realistic around, okay, well, the next thing's going to take a lot of effort and work and grind and, you're just getting started, etc. But you can't compromise on the other elements of your life because those things is what's going to enable you to be successful. And I think most people can agree with this, and we see it, with the people, actors even, and things like that, that they get up, into those high places and they say, I wish I spent more time with my family, or I wish I had done this, or, money isn't everything. And it is a hard line to manage because especially when you're passionate about something, because you just always want to be doing it, you want to be
Yeah,
growing it, especially if you see, I'm signing more clients, or the business is growing, or look at the subscribers I've got, or the followers, and all that jazz. And
yeah,
some of those things are very important and some of them aren't, but it does help us boost our egos, but also boost our mentalities of like what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, having that balance and making sure we have those priorities it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
definitely. Like, there's that famous saying where they say that, oh, if you live your passion, you never work a day in your life, which I kind of think is a little bit of BS in a way,
Yeah.
because at the same time, every job, no matter what it is, it's a bit like a wave, right? It
Yeah.
has its peaks and troughs. You might be at the top of the wave and everything's going amazing, and that it might be at the top of the wave and everything's going,
Yeah.
crap, and it's not going the way you want. But you just got to remember and take a minute to realize that it is just a wave, and once you get past that break, and once you get past that break zone of the wave,
Yeah.
things are going to level out and it's going to come back to normal, and it's only temporary, right? And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
No, but I guess, from that, it's kind of like you are in control. And I think,
Yeah,
when you're at the peak, if you're in the peak in terms of, let's say you're making lots of dollars, but you're not happy, well, you are responsible to then make the decision of, well, how do I get myself happy, right? And it's the same way when you're down low, you were responsible,
mm,
like, well, how do I get myself in a better position? Because you might be
exactly.
doing low in your business, but you have heaps of time with, your family, loved ones, etc., etc. But then you're not happy because, your business isn't succeeding where you want it to be. So once again, you have to then ask yourself the tough questions like, well, what can I change? What can I do? How do I level up? How do I go? And it's a bit of both, right? I'm not saying
Yeah,
because you can't be 100% this and that grow, because that's not the reality of it. You have to have that balance.
I think it
But
depends on the person as well. Like, some people, what they value in life, if you value that time with your family more,
yeah,
some people might value money more. It just really depends on,
yeah,
I guess, who you are and where you are in that. But I think it just depends on the person.
that's right. And it 100% comes back on us. We're responsible for our own lives. And I think anyone on this journey to, pursue their passions, change their lifestyle, or build something, we need to be willing to have that accountability, have that responsibility, have that conviction. And because
Yeah,
you can't blame it on anyone else. If you're working for someone else, you can blame, oh, my boss asked me to work the weekend, I'm miserable and annoyed at him.
yeah,
I mean, you can be miserable and annoyed at yourself because you said yes and you don't have those boundaries. But, when it comes to you and you're the one driving the ship, or, in control, the only person you can complain to is yourself, right? And I think that's hard to swallow, but it's an important one to realize that, you are the one driving the wheels. So if things aren't working out, it's like, there is external factors and things like that. But once again, it comes back on you, right? Like
it
you got to be the
does.
one
It
to
does.
swallow that. Yeah.
Especially when, like, being a solopreneur, if you will, there's that thing of, like, you're right, your boss isn't telling you at 7:30, okay, you got to be at work by 8 and start your day. Like, you've got to find your own motivation, which, for the first month is probably motivation, but then it actually turns to an intrinsic of how disciplined are you and everything like that, to get up every day, to get out of bed, because no one's telling you to do any of this
Yeah.
stuff. You have to be accountable for your own self. Get your own self up out of bed, sit down, go out, do that shoot at, sunrise, whatever it may be.
That's it.
There's no one else telling you to to do it. It's you. And I guess that's one of the biggest things. I was so used to the full-time life of like, hey, we're just going to be here at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Let's go do this. We'll smash it, and then we'll be done by 6, 7 at night. But now it's like, okay, no, like if you want to, you got to get your own ass out of bed. Like it's so easy to hit that snooze button and roll back over. But like there's times where you're like, nah, come on, Jaiden, you can do it. Get up, get that edit done, get it to the client. They're going to be stoked about it. Like it's just having that intrinsic, that internal motivation and discipline to be able to do those things. That was a huge learning curve as well.
Wow. I love it. And I know we could dive into this for a long time, but let's get into the juice of, what you're actually all about, which is ShareWorthy. So I know you touched on it already, but what is ShareWorthy? What do you guys do? And maybe you can kind of give us a sneak peek of, what's a day in a life kind of thing.
Yeah. So we're basically a content creation or a creative agency, basically is what we like to call ourselves. Originally I started with this whole idea of like, I'm just going to say yes to every client and please every client and take on everything. Did you do social media? Yes. If you do graphic design, yes. Web design, yes, absolutely. Had no idea, but I just said yes, and I quickly learned that wasn't the best route to go down. And I quickly then niched down and been real specific to just doing content. So now we just do photo and video, I guess, production and content. For a bunch of different things, whether it's commercials, cinema ads, to a lot of social media campaigns and things like that as well. So it's a lot of social media stuff, I'd say, at the moment. It just seems to be where a lot of brands are also seem to be pivoting into that industry. See what I did there with pivoting? Hey? But yeah, I guess that would be the main source of business at the moment.
Okay, no, love it. That's really good, and it's such a competitive landscape, but at the same time, I feel like it's not, because I feel like there's so many people doing it. Yet, I don't know. I feel like there's so many people doing it because it's an easy thing to start, but it's that longevity of the greats that actually make it through. And it's. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's hard. It's as you said before, you're bringing your way of doing things, and that's what you're bringing to your clients as a service or product. And if they don't like that, well, then there's plenty of fish out in the sea. You'll have to answer this, but it's not like you're struggling for work, right? There's a hungry demand out there, but at the same time, you have to be knowing, what's best for you and your North Star and where you want that to go. So I guess, ShareWorthy is only like, it's not even that old. How old is it?
We started in January, so what's that, 4 or 5 months now?
Yeah. I guess, okay. I was going to say it started, but we're already nearly halfway through the year. Crazy.
Hey, I was just thinking the same. I was like, wow, it's 5 months in already.
But I guess, even though it's kind of 5 months in, there's a lot of experience and build up before that launch, which enabled you to hit the ground running quite quickly. But with that in mind, I guess, what's, and I'm not here for you to, tell us where you're going to be in 5 years and we come back and say you didn't make it. But, what's the ambition? What's the goal? Where do you want to be in a year's time, 2 years of what, so people can get a kind of understanding of, it's not just, another photography, videography business, but what's the ambition or the conviction behind it?
So if people can't tell already, I absolutely love it. Like, I'm just so incredibly passionate about photography and videography and just, creating some, I don't know, it's so hard to describe. You just love it. Like you just get so pumped about it. I don't care if it's, 1 o'clock in the morning, on a Sunday and I'm editing, or whether I'm up at, on Tuesday for a sunrise, it doesn't bother me. Okay. I'm there and I'm just happy to be creating things. But at the same time, you're right. It also is a business, and you're there, I guess, to make money and pay for your bills and so forth. And, as much as we don't like to, to focus on that side of things, it also is, like you said, the reality of things, right?
Yeah.
And I feel the biggest one, when I first started ShareWorthy, I was I was paying attention that I wasn't going to leave my full-time job unless I was 100% certain that ShareWorthy was going to take off.
Yeah.
So I actually made sure that I had a couple of monthly retainer clients lined up prior to leaving. So then I know that once I leave, I've actually got some income ready to go off the bat. So I made that, and then we slowly grew it. We've got a bunch of retainer clients now. So I think we have like 4 or 5 retainer clients that are basically on a monthly capped amount of price for X amount of content. And then any one-off project that we have, whether it be for someone or a brand or whatever, I consider that just like basically profit or reinvestment into the business.
Okay.
Because I've covered my costs with the retainers, this is all profit and reinvestment. And I guess for us now, we just want to keep growing. Ideally, I'd love to, how do we take this to the next level? Getting possibly an editor, getting maybe a videographer, developing a small team, nothing too major, just a small team. And then from there, as much as I do love content and ShareWorthy, I'd love that to be the base for so many other avenues I'd like to go. Basically.
Love it. No, it's good. And I know you're not trying to oversell it or, put all these, this is what we're doing. But it's good, right? Because, I know that you're like, there's this ambition and dream and goals of big picture stuff, right? And that's great because you're being sensible of knowing that expectation versus reality, because you have gone through that experience of knowing what does it take, or seeing, people that you've worked for and how they've had to build that business, even having you come in and do the videography, right? That's the same process that you're about to go through, to have someone else come in, work for you, do stuff for you. And that in itself is another whole ball game, right? I don't have anyone working for me as such. And, that's something that will come eventually. And it's a whole different mentality and understanding that you have to get into the groove of, and being willing to let go, and you have to learn to do that. It's, I can't even, I'm laughing about it because it's like going to be one of those things that will be difficult and hard to do, but it'll become a necessary thing in order to get to that next level. I love it, man. I love your passion so much, and time is flying. So with that, I want to kind of dive into like just a quick a segment of rapid fire questions, just for the audience to kind of get a different perspective of you and what you're all about. And of course, if you want to add any, dive into any detail of this, you can, if you think it's going to add value. Otherwise, feel free to just bang them out. But the first one is like, what is your favorite book you have read or listened to?
Big Audible fan. I drive a lot, so it's just a bit of a time thing. I listen to a lot of James Smith, so he's like a PT kind of thing, but gives like a lot of life coaching and advice. Super cool, pretty raw, down to earth. So if you get offended easily in that, I highly not recommend. But but I don't know, I just resonate with a lot of what he says. And then the other one that's, there's heaps, man. Like I've got Winning by Tim Grosvenor at the moment as well. Super cool, which is Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, hit their coach. That was super cool. And Ant Middleton as well. Ant Middleton, like a military fella.
Okay, and these are more podcasts, aren't they?
They've got books as well. They've all got books, but they've got podcasts as well. All are good. Nice. Lots of helpful advice.
Love it. I'll add a listen to the show notes so people can check them out if they want to. The next one is, you win $10,000 today, no strings attached. What are you doing with it?
It's a pretty boring answer, really. I think I'd probably just pay off like a little bit of the small debt, and then I'd reinvest all of the rest of it into just my other businesses that I want to do.
The funny thing with this is, I've had a few people, here I am pointing my texture at you. I've had so many people say, it's a boring answer, and they say, I'll just put it to the house, or I'll just do this, but it might be boring, but it's a smart thing, right? And I think it's this perception of money, and I'm sorry that I'm diving into this, but I think, it's always great to hear these answers, because everyone's at different parts in their lives, and you can start to see what that money is a priority to, right? And I love it, right? Getting that debt out of the way, and being able to move it or reinvest it or whatnot is going to help you scale and move quickly and grow, because you get rid of the debt, you don't have the cost, it means you have better cash flow. So there's so much in that is valuable, right? So kudos, that's good. I love that you have your priorities right.
Thank you. Yeah, I try. No, I'm just gonna go $10,000 blow it on the weekend.
Which is fine as well. You're entitled to it. You've won it. But like, that's why I love hearing the answers, because everyone is different with it. How do you like to spend your free time outside of cameras and videography and all that jazz?
I think it's so important to have like a hobby or something that isn't related. It's funny that back when I was working in, let's say, like retail or whatever, when I was at uni, my hobby was to go and film and shoot cameras and take photos. Whereas now, because I do that for my job, it's almost like the last thing I want to do in this almost sad way, like when I'm
Yeah.
as a hobby. So now I usually either just chill with friends, like to socialize, go to the beach, go to gym, and just go on an adventure, whether it's for a nice hike or something. But
Yeah, love it. So very outdoorsy kind of thing.
yeah, definitely love the outdoors. Anything like that, I'm down.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. The next one is your favorite quote or saying.
Oh, it's not a popular one. It's actually one that I got told by a mentor once. But basically, he asked me, he's like, okay, what would be your biggest dream? Like, if you could dream of something, you had no factors in play, whatever, what would be your biggest goal, your biggest dream, your biggest aspiration?
Yeah.
And I told him, and then he's like, okay, sweet. Now dream even bigger than that. And I feel like that has always just stuck with me in my head. And he's like, dream even bigger than that. And that is actually what you were capable of.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that is so true. Like,
I love that.
Whatever you put your mind to, all you need, like you can, if you just back yourself 100% and put it's just so hard to describe. You can accomplish anything you put your mind to.
Yeah.
I feel like
it makes sense because it's exactly what I saw. I mean, for those that are watching, I don't know if anyone else saw it, but when you were talking about, when I asked you about your dreams and ambitions for ShareWorthy, and you were saying all these things, but I know that that's what you're willing to say at this point, and then there's this whole other level, right? I know that because it's the same for me, and that's exactly what I see there. That's like that I guess visual version of it. So it makes complete sense because you do or you do not, right? It's kind of like what you say is what you do kind of thing. So if you're saying you can't do it, then you won't do it. But if you dream it and speak it, and then it's likely going to happen because you're going to move towards that. So dude, it makes complete sense.
All it takes is a little bit of imagination and your willingness to put in the work, and that's it. You'll be able to conquer the world.
Love it. Advice you would give your younger self, even though you are quite young, if you're going back to teenage years, or someone starting out on this grind, and maybe it doesn't even have to be a younger self, but maybe but because you were younger, obviously, it's going about 5-10 years back, what would you tell yourself?
I would say back yourself 100%, and I would also like to say that don't necessarily compare yourself to others. Be comfortable with who you are as a person, and sort of stay in your own lane. At the end of the day, you're not trying to impress everyone. People should like you for you, and not you whatever you're trying to be, or whatever you're.
No, love it. And the last one is a random fun fact about you.
Oh, okay. A lot of people probably don't know, but I actually love playing the drums.
There you go.
That's you didn't even see that one coming, did you?
No, I didn't. But I'm the same. If people ask for that, people's like, "Oh, what's a fun fact?" It's like, "Yeah, I play drums." It's one of the least things that I show, and I haven't played for a very long time. But always tapping in the car, like it's going.
Same.
It's like my
people say I can't sit still. Like I'll be at dinner or even on this podcast, I'm sitting here like tapping my legs away.
Oh, I love it. That's good. And that's what I love. Everyone has these, because there's a lot that we see, and that's why my backdrop for anyone's watching, I try to put things out there so people can see what I like, and, because it invites conversation, or invites, interest, or, maybe it, pushes people away as well. But, think, I don't like that. But, those kind of things, they're just fun and quirky. And that's what helps build and I guess mold us to who we are. Well, dude, it's been, wow, we've spoken about a lot, and I know some of it we've touched surface level on, some we've gone into deep, but to hear the journey, and it's only at the start of an amazing journey that I know is going to be big and bold. But what I've resonated so much with is just helping people understand that we can have these goals, aspirations, but I guess it really comes down to grit and the willingness to learn and pivot. And if that learn and pivot means you have to kind of sidestep and go on a slightly different journey to be able to get to where you want to be, the beauty of it is all that you've done has gotten you closer to your end goal, which is you want to work for yourself and build your own business or platform. And back then you didn't know it was going to be called ShareWorthy, and like I said, things can always change, but you're always pointing in the same direction of where you want to be. And I think that's really what I've taken away so much from this. So I really appreciate the conversation. I can't believe how quick the time's gone.
It flew, yeah.
But one last thing that we'll get for you to tell everyone where to find you. But the first thing I want to ask is, if you could leave anything for the audience to take away from this episode, what would that be?
I feel like, yeah, just believe in yourself, back yourself 100%. I feel that, like you said, be okay with the fact of being okay to fail.
Yeah.
But just always remember to get back up afterwards and just keep going. And I feel like whatever your goal is, whatever your achievement, your dream is, that if you just look at that and then just start putting small steps every single day in place to just being able to achieve that, that you'll be surprised within such a short amount of time how far you've actually come
Yeah.
and how close you are to achieving that goal. And then once you've achieved that goal, set another one and just keep going and never ever quit. There is no limits.
Love it. It's so true. I resonated with so much, but where's the best place for people to come, find out about you, ShareWorthy, and I'll put all this in the show notes, but yeah, how's the best way to connect?
Best way to connect. So Instagram is my biggest one probably. So just at Have You Met Jaiden. If you're looking for ShareWorthy, again, we're just on socials everywhere at _ShareWorthy. Websites, all of that sort of stuff. Trying to dabble in the YouTube space under Have You Met Jaiden, but it's a bit how you going at the moment.
I love it. No, that's awesome. So folks, go check out Jaiden, go see what he's doing, go check out his brand, ShareWorthy. And, if you are looking for some work, go check him out and see if that's something applicable for you. But, Jaiden has done a lot of content creation over the years across different, platforms and whatnot. So I don't think you'll be disappointed. I mean, I've used him for services before, and that's why I've got him here on the podcast, because I believe in what he's doing, and, the stuff that he brings, his creative talents do stick out. So kudos to you, dude. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you, mate. I know we've had, actually, we haven't actually had that many face-to-face conversations over the years.
Oh, yeah.
It's been great to be able to have this conversation deeper from when we caught up the other week. And yeah, thanks so much, dude. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you so much again for having me. And thanks for being so down to earth, and just, you've got so great people skills, and you can see as well, if you just keep persisting, I'm sure, mate, it's going to take off, and I'm so excited to see it. So I'm very excited. And like you said, we never, we're always watching in the background. It might not be as frequent as we said, but we're always watching. And we just been watching each other sort of grow and grow and grow. And I'm excited to see what the future holds. So thank you.
To the moon we go.
100%, brother, 100%.
Too easy. Well, thanks very much, folks. Go check out Jaiden. And guys, I'll just quickly jump into a wrap up of the episode. Cheers.
Awesome. See you, mate.
Well, there you go. Another wonderful episode. And I just want to say another big thank you to Jaiden for jumping over on the podcast and having the conversation. I kind of wrapped it up there and said what I really took away from it. But also I wanted to mention that most of the time we have what it takes. Most of the time we have everything in front of us ready to rock and roll. It usually just requires us to be willing to, whether it's take action, be willing to go all in, be willing to make that change. And as we touched on in this episode, Jaiden had to go through quite a few different pivots, quite a few different, I guess, episodes or experiences or adventures to figure out where he wanted to be, or to have that conviction and that confidence, and I guess that readiness to actually go out and start something on his own, in this case ShareWorthy. And that's the beauty of it, is we need to be willing to go through this journey, go through this experience, but be willing to take a bet on ourselves and be willing to back ourselves 100%, as he mentioned there just at the end. So it was a really good episode, really did enjoy it, but I do encourage you to go check out what he's doing. Go see all his socials, which we've put down in the show notes below, and go see what he's doing as an individual, but also go check out his business. If there's something there that resonated with you, and maybe you need someone to create some content, or maybe you're looking for someone else, or maybe you're looking for someone in that space, go check out ShareWorthy. See if he can do something for you as he continues to build his business. He might be able to help you build yours. So really do appreciate you guys listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you do have any questions, you can reach out to myself, or you can reach out to Jaiden. Otherwise, you have a wonderful day. Cheers. Now, if you didn't know, we do have the podcast merch, and this is with a key focus of enamel pins. Now, if you haven't checked these out, make sure you do, because the intent of these are really just to be a small token and a reminder for you to charge on, to push on, and to further your lifestyle. Whether it is a gift for someone else to encourage them, or maybe to inspire them, or maybe it's a way to motivate yourself, or you can simply just make a purchase to simply support the podcast, which would be greatly appreciated. We do also have some sweaters and some long tees, so make sure you check it out. Link in the description and in the show notes. Really do appreciate it. Cheers.